Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. We have a show full of great stories for you tonight, including a migrant settlement program in Oregon that's now scrambling for dollars after losing major funding. We'll explain what happened there. But first, it now seems clear Oregon will repeal Measure 110 and recriminalize drugs. But then what? What comes after that, especially when it comes to the availability of drug treatment? Well, that's our big story tonight.
21 ayes.
House Bill 4002A, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Within the past 70 minutes, Oregon Senate passed House Bill 4002 by a vote of 21-8, creating a moment of Oregon history, one step closer to the undoing of the state's experiment with decriminalizing drugs. The bill now just waits for the signature of Governor Tina Kotek. Measure 110, which decriminalized drugs, is being replaced by a bill that brings criminal punishment to drug users, but offers them many ways to avoid that punishment, first by getting drug treatment. Tonight, I talked with two House Democrats who worked on the bill to get their reaction to its passing through the legislature. I asked Representative Tanya Sanchez if she is happy with the end product.
Well, I'm not happy with recriminalizing necessarily. I don't know if I like that phrasing necessarily, but what I do recognize is that sometimes it takes a little bit to get what you need, and what we needed was to really make some huge investments in behavioral health and mental health services. I mean, those were absolutely important things that we have disinvested in for some time, and we needed to work on that. And if it took getting to a place where we had to have a stronger level of accountability, then there we are.
So not exactly thrilled, but satisfied with the final bill, not because of what it takes away, but for what it adds. Representative Jason Kropp said the change is what citizens told him they wanted.
On the whether possession of drugs like fentanyl and methamphetamine should be a crime or not, what we heard from law enforcement and from constituents was there are things that we're seeing in our community that we want there to be some sort of intervention. We want police to sort of intervene in the moment and confiscate and take those drugs off our streets, but want to make an immediate connection for those folks to treatment and behavioral health services, not to jail. And that's that's the framework we are trying to create here with this unclassified misdemeanor. We have 23 counties signed up, have a commitment to work on deflection programs. People wouldn't even have to go to jail. Police can intervene in the moment and then make an immediate handoff to behavioral health services in their community. That is a different approach than we've taken on drug charges ever before.
So now that that's done, we want to show you what happens next, because a lot of you have questions like this one that came in from Sean. They write, simple question, where are the thousands of drug treatment beds going to magically appear from when the governor signs this bill? Well, it is an excellent question. The short answer is they will not magically appear. It will take a bit of time, which is why enforcement will be put off until September 1st. But there is also a ton of money, $211 million in the next year, that will flow to a bunch of different agencies to get systems set up. It's part of another bill in the legislature poised to pass alongside 4002. Here's just a sample of what that includes. The Department of Administrative Services will get $85.4 million to set up detox and stabilization centers all over Oregon. They include Baker County, which will get $600,000 to build a crisis receiving center at its existing recovery village. Benton County will get $5 million to relocate children and family services. Clackamas County will get $4 million for the construction of a crisis stabilization center. Malheur County, $5.7 million to convert a vacant retail facility into health care with supported housing units. Marion County, $11,500,000 for development of the Bridgeway Medical Center and substance use disorder treatment, residential facilities there. Multnomah County, $10 million to build a behavioral health drop-off center. And by the way, I'm told there's a really good chance another $15 million will be added to that package. There's also $4 million for the Cascade AIDS Project to buy the Prism Health facility on North Morris Street here in Portland. And in Washington County, roughly $9 million for a Center for Addiction Triage and Treatment Projects. So there's a lot of money being spread around. Another $71 million will go to the Criminal Justice Commission. And of that, $21 million will go out as grant money to counties which choose to set up those deflection programs you heard about. Those programs would give drug users a chance to go into treatment instead of going into jail. Another $20 million will be used to set up a jail fund based for opioid use disorder programs to help drug users get off their drugs while they're in jail. And $7 million will go to specialty courts, like drug courts, used to help addicts get clean. It also includes $4 million for a restorative justice program and $500,000 for a jail reentry pilot program. And I know all those numbers do not total $211 million. I'm just giving you the highlights here. There's also money going into early childhood learning and colleges and the State Judicial Commission and the Public Defense Commission and the Department of Corrections and State Police and a whole long laundry list of others. It is a wide-ranging program that's trying to set up or strengthen existing programs to help counter drug addiction and to help with mental health issues in Oregon. Which made me wonder, well, why spend new money? Why not use the tens of millions of dollars flowing into Measure 110 programs now?
Because that was never going to be enough. As I mentioned before, we have disinvested in the behavioral health and addiction systems for a very, very long time. And the combination of a massive influx of drugs into our state and into our country, very deadly drugs, which happened prior to the pandemic, prior to Measure 110, all of those things in combination made a really difficult situation. And the fact that we had not invested significantly enough prior to that sort of put us in a place where we're going to need a little bit more, maybe a lot more, and maybe longer term in order to get to a place where we can actually support people.
All right, and then circling back to that very first question, how are all those programs magically going to help and get people ready? Well, Representative Sanchez says, actually, those programs are coming up to speed right now.
Well, I think a lot of folks are just maybe not as aware as we are because we're deep in the midst of it all, that in 21, we put a lot of money into behavioral health beds and maybe not as much into, well, we did actually, in terms of the Measure 110 resources into the addiction services. They're just all coming online now. We've also put a lot of money into the public defense system, which is, again, just getting maybe back to a place where they can get to do things a little bit better. Not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but we put some things in place for the public defense system, and there are more resources available for that system. Where, it just takes time to get resources moving, and I think people are just not always aware of that.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on how that rollout works. And we want to hear from you. What do you think about this funding and investment bill? Is it enough to calm the worries that some of you have about a lack of treatment ahead of drug recriminalization? By the way, that recriminalization doesn't actually take effect until September. Or do you not think so? And why? All right, email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail. The phone number is 503-226-5090. New tonight now, we're going to take a step back from the legislature and Portland issues. And yes, I know we do cover those two things a lot. But let's talk about a program that helps migrants in rural Oregon, a program that's suddenly having to stop accepting new clients. It provides immigrant crime victims with legal help to manage court systems and to get visas allowed for survivors. Tim Gordon explains how Catholic Charities of Oregon is dealing with an unexpected loss of a huge federal grant that has supported the program for well over a decade.
Rural Oregon is home to more migrants than you may be aware of, drawn to places like Tillamook County for work in the dairies and other industries. Some have left home countries as survivors of violence, and some become victimized here. Most survivors of abuse are women. For them, legal help has been available at places like Tillamook nonprofit Tides of Change, thanks to Catholic Charities Immigration Legal Services. It's helped more than 3,600 low-income, mostly undocumented immigrants dealing with the effects of everything from domestic violence to human trafficking to get justice.
So these U visas and this system and this program particularly led them to know that it's okay to go to the police, to report your abuser, to report this criminal that are committing these crimes, and that allows them to stay here legally.
Since 2007, the Department of Justice has awarded grants to Catholic charities to fund legal aid for migrants in rural Oregon and Southwest Washington. This past fall, the DOJ's Office of Violence Against Women abruptly denied a new 3-year grant for $750,000.
It's difficult because we daily receive call from clients and agencies that need more support, and there are clients calling daily to get more services, and all of a sudden we don't have that service anymore.
John Herrera and his family got help to immigrate from Colombia nearly 20 years ago to escape political violence that threatened the young attorney and town mayor. He was a client of Catholic Charities before he started working for them.
Yes, absolutely.
Now he is the director of its Immigration Legal Services, which has a room full of files, a history of its work.
We have lives here. We have so many lives, so many families, so many survivors.
Herrera says they have an obligation to continue helping those already in the process of court cases on the road to healing and permanent residency. But for now, they can't take on any more.
Definitely.
That hits hard in Tillamook.
Yes. It's very devastating for our community because we're a very small rural town and there are no other legal services, immigration legal services that we can refer people to.
That's Director of Services Norma Obrist.
This is Tides of Change.
She's seen the difference legal assistance has made during 17 years at Tides of Change.
Hola.
Y un servidor hemos estado contentos aquí en Tila.
But me and my family, we've been very happy here in Tillamook.
Making a difference for people like Julian Gomez, whose daughter is a survivor of domestic violence and whose family has legal residency living and working in Tillamook for more than 2 decades.
Pues es muy importante estas oficinas
It's very important what these agencies do
para la gente que tiene problemas.
for people that have issues going on.
It's incredibly invaluable resource.
Executive Director Valerie Bundy says the loss of the resource is heartbreaking, especially thinking about new victims of abuse who need help.
So now we're concerned about like what does that mean, because the options often are to stay or end up in maybe another unsafe scenario because you don't have any other options.
Herrera says they will be reapplying to get federal funding back, and they will do all they can in the meantime. And they can do more if you can help.
You know, every single dollar amount is not small. You can donate, you can support, you can continue the good work of keeping this country of immigrants and safe for immigrants.
Tim Gordon, KGW News.
So why did the DOJ decide not to renew the grant? Well, Tim tells us Catholic Charities say they've not really gotten a good answer on that, and the feds have not responded to our team. Beyond providing legal assistance for migrants, the money was also used to train thousands of social workers, volunteers, even law enforcement regarding the rights of migrants who have experienced violence. If you'd like to donate and help out, you can head to thekgw.com and find Tim's story. He has a link to that story if you'd like to help out. Coming up next on The Story, Portland's fentanyl emergency has yielded a single action in its first month. That's a temporary suspension of bottle return sites at 2 locations downtown. But it turns out there's growing controversy over a planned bottle drop location in the St. John's neighborhood. Blair Best brings us the details when The Story returns. Starting tomorrow, a big change. 2 stores in downtown Portland will pause taking bottles and can returns, but only for 30 days. It's an effort to curb drug activity where people return cans for cash and then turn around and buy fentanyl. This is an issue that I see every day. The places I'm talking about are just blocks from the TV studio here. But as Blair Best reports, concerns around bottle return centers stretch far beyond the central city.
For this family, collecting cans fills the gaps.
Well, we kind of just depend on it for gas or like little extra things for the light bill, just little extra money, really.
For Jean,
between like $30, $70 a day.
It's a full-time job.
Pretty much.
She's camped in Delta Park for the last 4 years, in part because a bottle drop is so close.
It means a lot to me, and I know a lot of other people.
But this seemingly innocent way of padding one's pocket can come at a price for the surrounding neighborhood. In the past 2 months, Portland police responded to the bottle drop at Delta Park 5 times. 2 traffic stops and 3 suspicious circumstances calls. Police say last year they were called there dozens of times. So it's no secret with some redemption centers comes criminal activity.
We don't want that here in our neighborhood.
Will Medier lives in the St. John's neighborhood, where the Oregon Beverage Recycling Cooperative is looking to open a bottle drop in this former Dollar Tree. That's the group that owns and operates all Oregon bottle drop redemption centers.
It would accelerate drug use, crime, and everything that is proven in data to surround these bottle drop locations.
Well, it'll bring more people, but they're here. They've got to go somewhere, you know.
The OBRC told KGW in a statement these redemption centers provide important access for neighbors. They're well-staffed and well-maintained facilities. They go on to acknowledge the challenge addiction presents to Portland businesses and say they are eager for real, lasting solutions.
We do think the suspension may help stop some of the activity right there at that location.
Starting Saturday, local public safety officials are pausing certain bottle return services at 2 locations downtown, the Safeway at Southwest Jefferson and 10th and the Plaid Pantry a block away, for 30 days. Those locations give out cash for individual containers. It's an idea from those behind the fentanyl state of emergency declared late last month, and an attempt to stop drug activity there.
It only takes a handful of bottle or cans to be traded in for cash to be cycled right back to purchase fentanyl and to keep the cycle going.
People are going to find their drugs no matter what, you know, whether it has to do with the bottle drop or not. They're going to find a way, you know.
Now, court documents show that the Delta Park bottle drop has been sued in the past over security reasons. According to a 2022 lawsuit, the Delta Park Center was forced to hire armed security over safety issues happening right outside the bottle drop. Now, there was a settlement in that lawsuit, but those behind the bottle drop couldn't give us any details, saying they can't comment on legal matters. Pat?
All right, and Blair, you touched briefly on the proposed bottle drop location in St. John's, but it sounds like there's a lot more to that story. We've been getting emails from folks in the community for weeks.
Yeah, Pat, the St. John's neighborhood has been hit hard by homeless and drug issues for years now. About 2 blocks away from the proposed location of that bottle drop is the Peninsula Crossing Trail, which not too long ago was overrun with homeless camps. About 2 years ago, my photographer and I, while reporting on a story there, witnessed a shooting at that camp. Now, the camp is cleared and a Safe Rest Village that's run by the city and for homeless people sits in its place, but that has even come with its own sets of ups and downs for the community. So it's somewhat understandable here that the prospect of a bottle drop moving in is concerning to some neighbors.
Historically, North Portland's been a dumping ground for a lot of other things that the rest of our metropolitan area does not want to see in their backyard. And we feel like it was just an underhanded way to sneak this into, again, a central business district community and a residential neighborhood. It does not feel good, and people are outraged, as they should be. We've just been asking for collaboration and transparency, given that this is a pretty big issue for Portland at large right now.
Now, I do want to point out here that this is in no way final yet. The city's Bureau of Development Services still has to sign off and approve the project. So it's in the very early stages, which could be part of the reason that there's been little to no communication with the city and community. But if it is approved, neighbors tell us they plan to appeal that and even file a lawsuit against the project. Pat?
Oh my. All right, Blair Best, thanks so much. And by the way, check this out. In just the past 15 minutes, we got new numbers from Portland Police on how many times first responders have had to show up to the Delta Park bottle drop, the Plaid Pantry downtown, as well as that Safeway store a block away. It's a combined 339 times between January 1st of 2023 and yesterday, so 14 months. That includes calls for police, fire, and medical services. That seems like a lot to me. Up next on this story, the sheer number of crows around the metro area, kind of hard to miss, but some neighbors in western Washington are concerned about birds tearing up their yards. Maybe it's happening in your neighborhood. Our Environment Northwest team brings us the reason why, which actually lies beneath the grass. We'll explain when the story returns. So let's talk about these guys, crows. We're used to their droppings all around town here in Portland, but in western Washington, they're also ravaging some people's lawns. Meteorologist Leah Pizzetti with our Environment Northwest team shows us the reason why.
This Federal Way backyard is an oasis.
Just keeping it natural, trying to do what I can to help, the native flora and fauna.
Created by Camille Perezelski to welcome flying friends.
My 3-year-old knows names of birds and will call it out.
Until recently, when one specific kind took over.
I did not expect this, and the ferocity at which they went to task was pretty insane.
It's a widespread problem in this neighborhood. A murder of crows destroying lawns. At each crime scene, blades of grass and a mess. So we called in backup.
Hi.
Hello, welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Gardening expert Cisco Morris says the criminal might not be the obvious culprit, despite the damage.
Because this is becoming a big problem. As you can see, your neighbors got it. And
But together,
all right,
they can dig a little deeper and get to the root of it.
break that up a little. Let's see if we see something in there.
Within seconds, The real suspect is revealed.
That's a European chafer beetle grub.
An invasive species found in the Pacific Northwest only in the last 10 years.
It's kind of like a horror story, you know?
The beetles, just as bad for lawns as crows, if not worse.
They're eating the roots, so they're wrecking your lawn either way, whether the crows, it's not going to look like this, but it's going to thin out really bad.
So while the crows seem like the suspects,
unfortunately, they're kind of sloppy eaters, you know?
they're actually the heroes.
You've got pests, and then the beneficials come in and eat up the bad guys, and it is kind of the circle of all of it. And so crows, they are actually helping out. Hard to believe as it is.
And with this new development, Camille is back to welcoming all birds to her home, even the murder of crows.
They are back on my friend list here, no longer in the doghouse, as it were.
This criminal investigation.
Thank you for figuring this out. Gross.
Now complete.
Case closed.
For Environment Northwest, I'm meteorologist Leah Pizzetti.
That is gross. Cisco says if the crows eat enough, they might be able to get rid of the grubs naturally. The best thing you can do to prevent the grubs in the first place is to keep a healthy lawn, since they tend to favor yards that are not well maintained. Who knew? Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks for watching, and remember the story, our collective story, that never ends. Straight Talk with Laurel Porter's coming your way next. Have a great weekend. I'll see you right back here Monday at 6:30.